The problem is that the scale at which we take natural systems and turn them to productive ends, and the lack of attention to long-term impacts. Those things we choose to ignore and postpone for another generation's concern or another time's concern by diminishing their significance. What are we doing wrecking the environment for the sake of short-term interests that we deliver to our children and grandchildren a world which is diminished? And I think that is not just an economic issue, it's a moral and ethical one as well. Okay, so who pays the price and who evaluates, how you measure the notion of development? Countries have consistently said, oh, we can only deal with these when we're rich. We, in the rich world, have got to set an example of this sustainability because we have both the resources and the capability and the room to maneuver at the moment to do so. While we see, we're just getting more money, we're getting more consumption, we have more opportunities like our world. The cost to many people in their lives are what they will externalize. When people start externalizing the welfare and upbringing of children, we're dealing with some pretty serious problems here in terms of the pathology of what we mean by progress and what we mean by wealth. I grew up in the countryside, on farms. What we saw was ultimately, while extraordinary productive systems were achieved, we saw a raping of the land, a diminution of the resources, the overuse of water, the compacting of soils. These things came very quickly from land that was once pristine and incredibly fertile, began to lose that. So during the 1960s, where radicalization took place, I became slightly radicalized by those sorts of issues and became more concerned about broader issues of environment and development and what we were doing and what was happening elsewhere in the world.
What are your hopes for the future and what do you wish to inspire in your students?
Hopes for the future is that the next generation will be slightly smarter than we were, or at least more able to deal with the issues. And I hope that through the universities and through the education we can provide, can help the next generation to address these and have the moral courage to stand up to the manipulation which the media in particular has been engaged in, and to find themselves more ethically, more responsibly and more intelligently in relationship to these broader issues.
Well, as a student so far, I've just been more political in my thoughts. I'm thinking, for example, when I'm in the line for coffee, I'm thinking, do I really need this coffee? And if I do need it, what's the best way to get, the best brand of coffee, like free trade? And what am I going to do with my coffee cup afterwards? Like, it's made me want to bring a mug in every time I want to get coffee. I'm like, can you please fill it into this mug? No, it sounds really weird, but that's like little things that I can do. And then people ask me, you're so weird, but that is so cool. And they ask me why. And it's like recounting my story every time. And so I guess that little spark that Merson started in all of us in his class has kind of projected throughout my whole uni life. And I think if it starts from such a ground level like uni, then we can slowly progress it to a national level and then perhaps an international, and it's a global phenomenon rather than having, like as I said, the distinct groups working and biting at each other going, the economy, the environment, because they're all just so closely integrated. And I think as students we can bring that in, because we see it integrate within us, and that's what I think the global crisis is. The global crisis is in the way we think of it rather than the way it is, because it's all intertwined. It's just our way of thinking about it. That's the actual crisis. Rather than focusing on policies to have specific targets in different areas, I think it all has to be part of an integrated program. I think it's really selfish of us to think that the economy prevails over the environment. I think it's really incredibly selfish.
Wants and needs are something which people don't really grasp. They're created by a sort of treadmill of continual turnover of consumption as a way of driving an economy. There are better ways of looking at economy than just that. And also in the spectrum of consumer and citizen, to veer more back to our roles as citizen and look at the broader interest rather than our individual self-interest, to take our head out of the consumer trough for a while and start looking at the broader interlocking interests we have with others. We're all the same. I'm no different from anyone else. My own inertia and tendencies for complacency, and it's all too difficult and why bother. But nonetheless, part of the role of a university is to explore ideas and help the next generation see things perhaps slightly different from the previous, and therefore be better equipped to manage and address them. I have so many memorable moments. But the most recently memorable one was just half an hour ago as I left a class at the end of a session, and students actually thanked me for what I was doing. Well, I thought that's a very memorable thing. And to find people who say, yes, that's really what I want to hear and want to know, then that's a memorable thing for me and a value.